any part of the main plateaus, and these are what we call our fire islands. And fire islands, we don't do any prescribed fire. We don't do anything except for when lightning strikes occur, we let them burn as they naturally would. So these are very isolated areas, and we're just going to let them do their natural thing. So what do I mean by the fire activities that we do? So we do prescribed fire, we do wildfire, and we do monitoring. Those are our three main activities in the park. And I just want to go over some characteristics of what we mean when we say prescribed fire and wildfire in the park. For prescribed fire, we're talking about relatively small areas. They're planned areas. They're usually between roads and trails. Their sizes vary based on where those boundaries are that we can work from. And we usually have a multi-point ignition pattern. So we have either a person or a helicopter dropping fire in strips or in dots to start fire in the area that we're interested in. And so in this case, you can see we have a lot of control. We can start from a road and work back so that people can safely get through there. And we can burn these areas in relatively short amount of time. So this is an example of what it means to do aerial ignition on a prescribed fire. So this pink area is the prescribed fire unit, and these blue lines are the actual aerial ignition pattern that somebody who was dropping the fire onto the land actually had a GPS in their hand and followed what they were doing. And so when I mean multi-point ignition, I mean we're dropping fire within the course of a few hours across this entire area. And so from an operational perspective, this is a great thing to do. We can do it under the weather conditions that we want. We can have a lot of control over it. From an ecological perspective, this is not the way that a fire burned in the past. And so there are always those trade-offs that we do. Prescribed fires are also under a predefined weather condition. So we have a plan every time. What weather conditions are we going to burn under? What effects are we looking at? What time of year are we going to do that? And they generally last 1 to 7 days, something like that. So short time frame, pretty controlled activity. Another thing to be said about them is because we have a predefined weather condition, there are only certain times of year that we can burn. And so if we look at our lighting fires, so the map that I had up there before, this is percent of fires on the y-axis, and this is month of the year. You can see that our lighting fires mostly occur in July and August, some in June, some in September. Basically, having more control of the fire means that you have to have fires in different times of year than they naturally occur. And so most of our prescribed fires are in September, October, May. So that gives us a lot more control. But again, not really the time of year that those fires naturally would have occurred. So what about wildfire? How do we manage wildfire in the park? The differences between wildfire and prescribed fire start at one obvious place, and that's that the ignition is generally a single point ignition. And so here you can see lightning struck this tree, blew out these pieces here, and started the fire there. The fire begins to move out up the tree and out onto the landscape from there. And so it looks a little more like this. You have sort of a front moving out in some kind of pattern depending on weather, fuel, and topography. You have a range of area in these and a range of weather conditions. And the amount of time that it takes is limited by the weather and the fuel. And so this is a great example of one of our wildfires. This is actually our longest wildfire that we've had in the park. And the fire started right here on August 8th of 2001. And these different colors show time progression, basically. It started here, it moved this way, and began moving down here. And this is one of our ponderosa pine areas. And so the last perimeter was October 27th. And so this fire lasted 81 days. And in those 81 days, we had a day where it only got up to 57 degrees. We had a day where it got up to 87 degrees. We had 22 days where it rained, and we had humidities all over the board. And so what we get with wildfire is a wide range of weather conditions, a wide range of different kinds of burning, and pretty much long duration fire, which is the way that fire naturally would have burned, but also what we're doing here is we have 81 days of smoke in the canyon. We have 81 days of somebody driving out to this area, looking at the fire, so we're assessing risk. And we also have the potential, because we have this wide range of weather conditions, we have the potential to have a day that we're not going to like, more or less. So we might have a day where we get intensities that we're not quite happy with. And so while this is the way that fire naturally would burn, there are also some trade-offs that are occurring there. The other thing is, this is actually Point Sublime out here. You know, if this fire is going on, Point Sublime may not be open for visitors. So there are a lot of things to consider. We're trying to manage a natural process, but we also have other considerations going on. The neat thing, the reason that I showed that is because we actually had a fire in that same area this year. And in contrast to the other one, it actually started way down here in the south. It started on July 4th of this year. And you can see the progression as it moved out. And this last perimeter was on the 6th of September. We've kind of gotten a bit of rain since then. So it hasn't moved a lot. But by the 6th of September, it had burned 70 days, 16 days of rain. Again, a wide range of weather conditions. And this is in the same area 10 years later. And so, again, we're letting natural progression happen. The third thing that we do is monitoring. And we do all kinds of different monitoring, and those feed back into different parts of the process. The first type of monitoring is immediate on-the-ground monitoring. We're monitoring weather, we're monitoring fire behavior, we're monitoring smoke as the fires are burning. And we're feeding that information back to those people who are actually managing the fires so that they can make decisions about how the weather is changing, whether the fire behavior is what they want, whether they're getting the effects that they want. The second type of monitoring that we do is long-term permanent plot monitoring, and so these are 20 by 50 meter forest plots where we measure all aspects of the forest, plants, surface fuel, all of those sorts of things. And each one of these green dots represents a long-term forest monitoring plot. We actually started this monitoring program in 1990, so we're at year 21 now, and we have a lot of data from these plots that we can feed back into the management and understand what the results of our activities have been on the landscape. And the third type of monitoring that we do is called burn severity monitoring. And this is an example of burn severity monitoring from one fire that we had in 2001. And essentially what this is it's a satellite imagery-based monitoring. So we take an image of the area before the fire and an image of the area after fire, and we get some measure of what the effect of the fire was. So how did it change the landscape? And so the green areas you see here would be a low severity fire, not much change to the landscape. Yellow areas would be a larger change, orange, larger still, and red would be a big change to the landscape. That's essentially overstory replacement. And we put in all of these little plots to calibrate that image. So we go out in the field and we actually look to see if this image is correct. And so we've been doing this since 2000, and I think we've put in about 1,100 of those plots, and I think we've got about 90,000 acres that we've done this mapping on. So that gives us a great landscape scale view of what the actual effects of each fire were, kind of a big picture view. And so to the question of are we accomplishing our goals and objectives? The first thing is, what are our goals? We have a lot of goals, 5 of them. The main one I'm going to talk about is number 2, restoring and maintaining natural and resilient forest systems. And so one way to ask if we're restoring and maintaining natural forest systems in forests that are fire dependent is to ask, are we actually getting fire back into these forests? And the question is yes. And so on this axis we have number of acres, and this is year, starting from 1980. And the bars represent the green is prescribed fire, the blue is wildfires that essentially we were allowed to burn, and the red is wildfires that we were trying to put out. And you can see, we began in 1980 making some pretty good progress, but really in the last 15 years or so, we've done a lot of work. We've burned a lot of acres each year, trying to restore and maintain fire in the forest of the park. And I wanted to just give a snapshot of what this year looks like on that average, since it's not on the chart. So far this year, we've had 16 lightning fires, and you can see them with this little fire symbol where they've occurred in this area. 3 of those fires have grown to relatively large size. Some of them we put out on purpose, some of them just sort of sat there in a log that got struck and didn't move on their own. So we have the Point Fire that's about 4,100 acres right now. The Woolsey Fire is about 400 or so. And then we had the Lower Fire down here on the south rim. I think in the park is about 70 acres, and there's some on the Forest Service as well. And then the yellow areas here, here are the things that we plan to do in prescribed fire this year, and that's another 7,000 acres or so that we'll try to accomplish this fall. So that's what this year looks like. So pretty much an average year for us. If you guys have been up to the canyon this year and seen some